Hi everyone, once again. My name is Uchechukwu Obasi. I'm a past mentee at Thanos and I'm a co-organizer of this event. Of course, most of you that have gotten or that have seen my mail would have heard about the name before. So I welcome you all once again to the first edition of the CNCF Mentees Meetup. Actually, this is the maiden event. This is like the first time we're doing something like this before. So we are really excited to actually plan this event, and we can't wait to tell you and then to show you what we have in stock for you. So yes, next slide. Yes, so moving to the agenda. So according to the agenda, you find that we have the first speaker in the person of Thakur. So Hash would be talking on the topic introduction to gRPC. And once Hash is done, we move to the Q&A session. And once you are done with the Q&A session, we move to the second speaker in the person of Khyati Soneji. So Khyati will be sharing her experience of getting into the Thanos ecosystem and how she made her first contribution to Thanos. And after that, we'll do a quick Q&A, and then we go for a quick break. And once we are back for the break, we move to the final speaker in the person of Vineeth Pothulapati. So Vineeth will be talking on his roadmap to becoming a CNCF mentee. And then after that, we wrap up for the event. So as you can see, we have a lot in stock for you. And really, I can't wait to actually learn from these people, from our speakers. And of course, we really implore you to learn from their experiences, get to make good use of the knowledge you get from this event today. So yes, next slide. Yes, so welcome once again. Before we move into the main agenda of today, I would really like to use this opportunity to give you a quick introduction into how we came about this initiative, the reasons why we are doing this in the first place, and our mission and our goals generally. Next slide. And before we start, please, I would like us to follow the CNCF Code of Conduct. Please be tolerant, be nice to each other, and respect each other, and please have fun. Next. All right. So a little bit of background story. So I guess in every great thing, there is always the little beginnings in every great story. So I'll start by sharing a little bit of background story of how we were able to come up with this initiative and our process into coming up with this and then our goals generally. So basically towards the beginning of June, I had the opportunity to contribute to the Thanos project as a maintainer and also as a contributor. So during those times, I I came on board to the Thanos project, and I was opportunity to also meet other mentees within the Thanos project. So I met Yash, I met Hashita, I met Sonia, I met Prem, and you know 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line, I found out that, hey, it could be nice if we could actually meet with each other and get to know each other. Of course, the way it was structured then, each and every one of us was working on a different project. So what it meant was each and every one of us had a different mentor. So, we decided to, create a channel for just us where we could actually collaborate, ask each other questions and get to know each other well. And then we created this channel called the Thanos Mentees on the CNCF Slack. So 2 weeks after we created the channel, my colleague Hashita came up with a really, really nice idea of us um, inviting speakers, to a kind of like an event, So, and interestingly, I was already thinking about, something similar to that. And more interestingly was that my colleagues as well, my fellow mentees, were also thinking in the right direction. And so we created an initiative which we called the Thanos Mentees Hangout. Next. So basically, the Thanos Meetup Hangout was an initiative we created, for us to invite, mentors, maintainers, and experienced software engineers within the CNCF ecosystem. So basically, we normally do that event on Fridays. So we basically send them invites, and then they join the call. And we try to, you know, we try to like make the topics to be beginner friendly, and also we tried to discuss things as relating to our careers, and basically becoming an efficient and effective software engineer and open source contributor. So we weren't discussing much about the technical side of things. We are just basically learning about different ideas and their different experiences, becoming an experienced software engineer. So basically, it was a really good one for us because we learned a lot from that particular initiative. So we started with Bartek. So Bartek is the co-author of the Thanos project. So he was like the first maintainer we invited to the meetup, or would I say to the event. So we had Bartek, and from Bartek we moved to a lot of other software engineers, maintainers within the CNCF ecosystem. Actually, I think we did over 10 plus, we invited over 10 plus maintainers, or would I say open source contributors within the CNCF ecosystem. So definitely this was like the major highlight for us as mentees, during our internship experience at Thanos. Next. So the good thing about it was, okay, during the end of the, like during our final mentees hangout, so we had a retrospective section where we like went through, through all of our experiences as mentees, within the Thanos project. So we thought of what went well and what didn't go well. And during that retrospective, we found out that the Thanos Mentees Friday Hangout was actually the major highlight of our internship experience at Thanos. And then we were able to deduct some key results we were able to achieve. So the first one was meaningful relationship. So the fact that we created an initiative that allowed us to get to meet each other, get to interact on a normal ground, actually gave us that opportunity to get to learn about each other. And we grew from becoming just colleagues to becoming friends. So that was one. And then the second was technical proficiency. Of course, we are really talented in different ways. So that initiative gave us the opportunity to learn from each other. So we get to learn, technical skills from each other, and we got to collaborate on different projects within the Thanos ecosystem. And then the third was effective communication. So we got to learn about how to communicate effectively, within the team and also outside the team. And then last but not the least was community building. Next. So what is CNCF Mentees Meetup? I know most of us might be wondering, what exactly is this? Why are we doing this in the first place? So CNCF Mentees Meetup is specifically dedicated to speaking about open source, and open source projects within the cloud native space. We don't only talk about open source projects, we also talk about open source best practices. And we hope to have this meetup to be a hub for a wide range of open source related topics where mentees could discuss, talk, contribute, learn, and operate in a cloud native open source world. Next. And of course, our mission. So why are we doing this in the first place? So basically, talking from experience, when I joined the CNCF, everything seemed so complex. We are talking about Kubernetes, we're talking about clusters, all of those concepts and those terms, it felt complex. And to be honest, I felt secluded in a way. I felt, I don't belong here. So basically, our mission is we hope to provide a very safe and inclusive space for newbies to network and grow within the open source space. And we also hope to like share topics that are beginner friendly. So we don't want to, you know, give you, expert um, level topics. We want to like make it as beginner friendly as possible. And also in the terms of sharing knowledge, we don't want to strictly share knowledge relating to strictly CNCF. We also hope to share knowledge across outside CNCF. So for example, the Grafana, the Openmetrics, OpenTelemetry, Jega, and more. And the good part of it all is that we also help to share concepts and best practices around software engineering as well as open source contributions. Next. And yes, so basically our primary goal is we hope to organize a CNCF Mentees Meetup. Actually, we hope to do this, probably at the beginning of every internship. So, although we are still in plans, we are still having this in our plans. But then we hope to organize the CNCF Mentees Meetup, and also we hope to provide an adequate onboarding experience for newbie open source contributors, that is the mentees, into the CNCF ecosystem. And not just that, we also hope to, introduce these newbies into software engineering best practices. So next slide. And yes, so that's that about the introduction. So we are moving into the speaker sessions. But before we move into the speaker sessions, I'd want to point out some few rules, would I say, for the Q&A session. So basically for the Q&A session, if you have any questions during the Q&A, please feel free to raise your hand on the chat session. I guess there's a raise hand button in the chat section. Please use the button and definitely would unmute you to speak up. But then if you're not really comfortable speaking, please feel free to chat, use the chat on the chat section. And of course, if you have any other questions or if you're not able to answer any of your questions, please feel free to copy your question to the CNCF Mentees Meetup Slack channel on the CNCF Slack channel. So yes, so that's that. So diving in, I would really want to introduce our first speaker. Um, so basically, we have Thakur. So Hash happens to be our first speaker, and Hash will be talking on introduction to gRPC. Over to you, Hash.
Thanks, Uche. So let me quickly share my screen. Uh, is it visible?
Yeah, we can say it.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So a little bit about me. So I'm currently an intern at Infra Cloud, which is based out of India. So previously, I got to know Padusha and other folks through this mentee hangout thing they were having, where we got to meet some excellent folks. And I was actually working at an open source project which was on storage, OpenEBS. So other than that, I'm also an HashiCorp ambassador and really excited about Kubernetes storage and serverless uh, technologies. Yeah. So I chose this topic about a little bit background about why I chose this topic. So when I started, like when I was selected as a mentee, the topic was actually my task was to build a CLI for OpenEBS. But then it happened that I had to actually build an API for it. So I was assigned to build an gRPC API, and before that, first off, I was relatively new to Go, so I was a bit into a gray area of what I'm going to do with Golang. So I started practicing writing REST APIs, a simple hello world, hello cat, that those sort of APIs. And suddenly I was assigned to write this gRPC API. So I quickly started going through all the material and learning what gRPC is. And surprisingly, it was very easy. And I want to show the benefits of why you would want to write one yourself or consider this before conventional REST API. So let's see, like how do we build an API? Going back to uh, the basics. So generally, when we think of an API, we just think of a REST endpoint, and REST is actually just an architectural pattern where you define slash endpoints and get limited to the set of verbs. So and data is usually formatted in JSON, but it could be anything, but most commonly JSON. So like we have been using it for over 20 years now, so it must be good, right? So what's so good about it? So it's a text-based protocol. It is very easy to understand. There's good tooling available because of a lot of years of work being done into it, and there are a lot more benefits. But the problems are real too. Like writing client libraries is not fun. You People just end up creating HTTP requests, handling the logic of writing retries, and all sort of networking issues, and all that. Those are hard coded in your basic HTTP code, or else even if you end up writing client libraries, writing it in different languages, and while maintaining the same names and conventions, I mean that's a nightmare. Even AWS had different naming conventions across their services a few years back. So, and the documentation can really feel like a chore. So, documenting those APIs is really a nightmare again. Okay, sorry. Uh, mm, okay, yeah, yeah. Another thing is streaming is very difficult in Rust. You have to create WebSockets, and WebSockets, I mean, they are good, but like uh, again, it's not bidirectional streaming, and it's again tough with it. So, and RESTful doesn't always make sense because you're limited to the verbs given. When you say you get a resource, you don't really get a resource. It could totally mean something else. And last, we can do way better serialization than text. Like there, we can send stuff over binary instead of plain old text with the technologies we have right now. So these are the steps involved when you're creating an API. Like when it comes boils down to it, the technologies when you want to compare, you would basically think of the implementation, documentation, and client libraries. So these are the three main criteria I'm going to use to compare REST and gRPC. So what is gRPC? So before gRPC came out, like there were a ton of RPC frameworks already out there. So people came up with RPC frameworks. Like I think Sun was the first one who came up with it in 1990s or something. Uh, then there was Corba. Microsoft came up with DCOM. That was a insane list back then. And recently, Facebook was the like by recently I mean 2007. Facebook came up with Thrift with Apache, and they were like that was the most decent RPC framework out there until Google came up with theirs in 2015, which kind of changed the whole landscape. So an RPC framework basically allows you to call any program or running anywhere, like it feels like a native method call. So that's the feel you get as a programmer. And what really sold gRPC off? So the first thing was defining the services in machine readable format. So the machine readable format is because when machines can read it, you can have support for multiple languages. You don't need to document stuff over and over. You can just write it in one machine readable format, which is easy to the eye. I'm not talking about SOAP or XML again. So you'll take a look at why gRPC is better at it than what SOAP did. But yeah, so you can define it in a machine readable format, and this lets us generate client libraries automatically, and you don't have to write client libraries. for more than 10 languages, it will the Proto-C compiler uh, gRPC provides does that for you. You basically get something called server stubs, which are just interfaces you need to implement to get going. I'll show a demo which would make way more sense after I show it. Yeah. So one other thing was data serialization. So, like I mentioned, so we were using mostly JSON to communicate. We can send binary. Protobuf is basically a binary encoding, uh, which can allow us to send data. And last point is the streaming is very easy. It can be bidirectional too. You don't need to deal with WebSockets or any other crazy stuff, and it feels very native to the framework itself. So yeah, I'll just jump over to showing it. Like this is mostly a demo oriented talk. So let me just show you. So all this code will be available on GitHub. So the first step would is to write a proto file, and this is where the most of the thinking comes in. And this could be the toughest part because this is not meant to be changed every day. And if you're going to change it, you need to maintain backward compatibility. So most of the thoughts needs to go in here. So what this is basically uh, we define a proto file. Now what a proto file is, so in that you can define messages. So a message can be in this format, and what it does is when you define it like this, gRPC encodes it into binary when it sends over the wire. So as a human, you can read it in this format and define it in this format, but when it goes over wire, it is very efficient because it goes into binary format. So you can see int is 8, a is 96, and 1 is 1, right? So we get that, and all we have to do is define a service. So this service, we can service name, like let's say welcome, and RPC is just the method call we are going to make instead of having fancy things like get verbs and everything. We just use what we want to really mean, like welcome dot world. Like let's welcome the world. It kind of means that. So welcome world, and which takes input as null. So gRPC, like you cannot leave anything really empty here. So the message type has to be explicitly mentioned there, and you can just return this message. So is equal to 1 actually means the binary number you're going to have. So this number actually matters because you can't keep changing this over time without letting the end users of your API know about it. So what we do after this is, let me just find the make file. Yeah. So I've written the Proto-C command to compile this file. Uh, so when I run it, so it gives a warning. Let's just ignore that. So what it actually does is it generates this code hello.pv.go. So this is a client generated code. We are not supposed to edit it. So the compiler has generated it, and it has given all kinds of things related to our message types. Uh, yeah, the message types and the server stuffs we need to implement. So the client libraries can just use this and create connections to our server stuffs. So it's a lot of code. You don't need to directly see it, but what you need to write is a server stub, and the server stub can really be simple. So what you do is you just create a. I've just created a function here, simple logger, and we have created a server instance. And okay, I'll talk about this in a minute, the reflection thing. But yeah, after that you just use the protos and rest of the welcome server. So welcome server is basically okay. Let me find the proto file again. Just a second. Okay. Yeah. So since we have defined a service welcome, we just use the welcome server thing. So whatever the name of the service, it comes over here, and uh, we need to define a struct which basically implements the methods we have defined here. So I've defined a service welcome. So I need to define a struct which has a welcome method. Only then would it work. So I've defined an empty struct over here, type welcome, and I've created a listener over port 1980. This is very native to how you create a port in Golang with the net package. And I've just started the server. That is it. That is how you start a gRPC server. And as for the implementation of the method I was talking about, uh, yeah. So here, this this part is already there. Like if I commented this out and okay, let me just show it here. I think that would be better. Yeah. So I just need to implement this one world with context and null as an argument, right? That is all I need to do. So, and that is what this function does. We take a context, we pass in the welcome struct as a method with object which needs to be called, and null, these are the arguments. So about the return types, we need to be very particular with this, because this is what you return as the message type. Like here we are saying that it returns person, so we need to comply with the construct it creates. So this is the construct we get. So the compiler has already converted this into a Golang struct for us. So we don't have to deal with anything else. So if you're changing the language as well from Golang to other language, this struct would be there even when you're receiving the data type. So that's very cool. And that is it. So let me just show an example of running this. So we have started the server. Now, one thing is that when with gRPC, like I said, you get stuff back in binary. So you can't really use curl to decode the information. You need to have the client decode the binary into text-based format again for you, so that it's readable. So for that, there's this really a nice tool called as gRPC curl, which basically does that for you. And what you get with this is, yeah. So the plain text argument is because we are not using TLS. So if I did this, it would start looking for TLS. So that's the reason we use the plain text argument. And the list function, so it basically lists the services our gRPC server has. So think of this like a robot.txt for REST, but here we don't have any concept as robots.txt, but we have something known as reflection. So this reflection allows us to look at all the services our gRPC server exposes. So when this is enabled, you can look at the services available. So when we list it, you can take a look that welcome services available. So if we try list welcome, we can also look at the methods it has available. So we see that welcome service has the method called world available. So now we can call that. So yeah, we get the response back. So this was just a simple encoding we got back, which was defined in the proto definition. So this was the first example I wanted to show. The next example is, yeah, in this next example I've just added uh, like this is more about how you deal with data types in protobuf. So you have various features like using arrays and some complicated stuff like using only uh, one-off and other structs which give you more functionality. But the native ones are just restricted to string, int, and repeated, and a bunch of other basic data types you would need. So here it's the same thing, but instead of returning just a person, I've added slice, and the slice is again given here. So it's basically just the same thing. Let me just show it. So now we get back the slice. And this would be like this can be taken in by the client as it is. So the next thing I wanted to show was, yeah. So in gRPC, like those of us who are familiar with HTTP world, we know that everything in HTTP is defined by status codes. And when you get a 200 OK, it means that everything is OK. But here in gRPC, you don't have anything as status codes, even though this runs on HTTP protocol. So that convention kind of breaks here. So what you really have is gRPC status code. So what this does is, okay, yeah. So let's say I have a lookup service which finds the person who's supposed to be there, right? And this is totally fine. So what this does is, uh, we take the same input and output. So that might sound some weird, but that's fine. So all the fields are actually optional. So any validation you want to do over the fields, that needs to be done in your code. So that's one thing. uh, in proto 2 this was not the case. There was a keyword known as required, but in proto 3 all the validation needs to be done uh, by you in the client side flow. uh, so yeah. So I have this, we take an input of string name and or names, and we just return exit, whether it exists or not in the response. So we won't be using the first two fields while returning the response, whereas we'll be using the first two fields when sending the request, if that makes sense. So that is what the above code is the same as I've showed before. And this is uh, yeah. So we just make a slice, we append the names, and we loop through the names there. And if the name the input has is matching to the one of the names, uh, we just return whether it exists. But if the name is something like let's say gRPC, like that's not a valid, okay, but if it is something like gRPC, then we just say that do not send gRPC here. And this is gRPC status code. So you can see that the code is 3, which really means invalid argument. You don't need to remember this like HTTP codes. You can just use the Google. Like Google has provided a package which can do it for you. So if you can see here, we have the lookup service now. So to actually send request to the lookup service, we have lookup.find, and we we need to actually send some data to it. So complying to the format we have there, let's just send yeah. Okay, what did I screw up? Okay. Right, so we just send the data we want, the input, and call the service. Okay, that's weird. What did I miss? Oh, there's no name field name. Okay. Okay. So it was Yeah. Okay. After a few tries, I got that right. Yeah. So I need to comply with the same case letters, and once I did that, so we already have CNCF in this slice already. So that's the reason we got that. But to showcase the point that we get errors. This is how you get an error. You just get the code and the message here. But sometimes you want to be descriptive about the error message. So what you can do is, yeah, so you can just create a new status code and define the custom error message you want. So with that, you can just define more errors and give a detailed description of the error you're displaying. And it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So now you get details of this error. So going back the slides. So one question that was there was Swagger. So Swagger is a huge thing in REST world because it brings order to what whatever chaos REST has, because you can create client libraries and do everything with it. But you still have to deal with JSON, rest over JSON, and you don't have things like streaming and that extra performance you want with binary encoding. Also, personally, I feel that gRPC ideal is way better, way easier to define than a Swagger open API specification. Like this is way simpler. I cannot believe that open API specification is easier than this. But of course, it has its own use cases like validation and stuff like that. So what's the catch with REST with gRPC? So gRPC uh, load balancing is in the works for some networking tools. Like it's relatively new, so tooling is still to be developed for most of them. Like Envoy has it, and rest of them are on their way mostly. Error handling is different, but that's not really a catch. It's I actually feel uh, that's also a good part. But the thing is, it's different than what you're used to in HTTP status code, so that might be a catch for you. And dealing with gRPC from browser is kind of difficult because the framework there, there's support for gRPC web, but using it is and for front end is way different than you would use for backend. So if you're interested to learn further about this, some things to look at next are streaming. So, like I said, gRPC supports streaming, and you can have bidirectional streaming and uh, do amazing stuff with it. And you can see the performance increase compared to WebSockets. And there are some amazing blogs which show the stats. Other stuff is related to writing middlewares and interceptors. And there are special proto message types. Most of them are available by defined by Google, which you can use to have special uh, functionality in your ideal, so that you can define messages a specific type. And one other interesting thing is exposing protobuf as REST endpoints. So even though protobuf is the signature gRPC uses, you can have pretty much any encoding over here. So you can even have JSON and JSON or anything. This is a pluggable interface, so you could literally have any data encoding you want over here, which is very cool. And people have written gRPC to JSON transcoding uh, interfaces, which lets you do that sort of stuff. So that might very well be a use case for you. So some of the resources are the gRPC website itself, and there's this amazing YouTuber Nick Jackson, who pretty much that's where I got on gRPC from, and I've provided the link for the GitHub repo as well. So thank you, and Please hit me up with questions.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Hash. I mean, your session was really insightful. Before now, I never knew about gRPC, but now I think I understand what gRPC is used for. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat. Raise your hands, use the raise hand button on the chat. We'll definitely unmute you. And if you don't feel comfortable, raising your hands, please feel free to use the chat, to type out your questions. Of course, we have our Slack channels, so feel free to also share your questions on the Slack channels. We are more than ready to answer your question.
Maybe to start with, I have a question, if I can, to Harsh. Amazing
Yeah.
presentation. And actually, we are in very high need in like good load balancing story for gRPC, especially in Thanos. We
Okay.
always, I mean, users usually use Kubernetes, which has, Kubernetes services, so you can load balance the gRPC traffic on the TCP level. And this doesn't work well if you want to have round robin load balancing. If you want to connect to two backends and just shift 50% load into one backend and 50% to next backend. And I remember gRPC had something called client load balancing. Do you know anything about maybe ongoing work on this? Does gRPC want to provide some road robin balancing, maybe other patterns? Who can I ask for it? Do you know anything on that topic?
Uh, so like so I don't know about the client load balancing thing, but regarding the server load balancing, uh, like I know that with Kubernetes it is hard to deal with it because even kubeproxy cannot is not compatible with gRPC yet, and it is defined in Rest. So that's a issue there. But if you have any other backend service, I think Envoy can help there, because Envoy supports gRPC as of now, I think. So I think that's an option.
Cool, thank you. That answered my question. I think, yeah, you can use Envoy, but I wished I can just avoid running sidecar. But and I'm
Ah,
pretty sure
okay.
there is some interface that allows you proxying, and essentially you move this logic into client. But I was looking
Okay.
for some progress in this space. But looks like the direction is to maybe for now use server, and that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other
Awesome.
questions from audience? Please don't be shy. There is question and answer section as well. You can ask question. You can ask question chat on Slack chat, or raise your hand.
Okay, like I have a quick questions. So Harsh, will you be sharing the resources?
Yeah. Okay. I can just share the slide.
Yeah, you can share
Sure.
it in
Yeah.
the
Sure.
Slack channel. That would be
Okay.
great.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I will.
Thanks. Apart from that, like if the attendees have really basic questions, feel free to ask. Like it's quite the first event, so like we are still on the way to calibrate. Feel free to ask questions.
So Uchad, we have a first question in question and answer. Actually, not first, but first in this topic. So I can repeat the question essentially.
Yeah,
Um,
I read it. I read it.
actually, that's
So
what you're.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I recommended this YouTube series by Nick Jackson. So this guy has created some amazing series about writing microservices in Golang. So he starts with REST and then moves on to gRPC. And you could just start with the gRPC service directly, gRPC series directly, and it's really amazing. Like that's where I caught on. Like I didn't really have to learn much after watching it. I just had to go through the documentation and some basic steps. but like I would highly recommend to watch that.
Cool. I have like more generic question or high level question. Um, I know gRPC is part of the, I think it's incubated stage, right, of the CNCF.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why do you think it's that? Like how gRPC is cloud native?
So, um, okay, that's interesting. So, uh, when it comes to being cloud native, like it can work with any backend. Like this comes back to using any framework you want, any language you want. So, and yeah, I think that is what it brings to the table, like access across various languages with high performance.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Any other question? Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, I guess we could probably move to the next speaker. But please feel free to use the chat, feel free to post your questions on the Q&A section, and also feel free to use the Slack channel. We are ever ready to answer any of your questions. So yes, moving to the next speaker on our list is Khyati Soneji. So Khyati will be sharing her experience in getting into the Thanos ecosystem and her journey in becoming an open source contributor. Over to you, Khyati.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So, hello everyone, and I hope everyone's been enjoying the first ever CNCF Mentees Meetup. My name is Khyati, and I'm currently a computer science student based out of India. Uh, I started my open source journey with CNCF community about 10 months back, around in January. And in this presentation, I will be like sharing my experience on how I started, how I got into the community, and also my learnings and few tips on how to contribute, how to get started contributing. Before start presenting, I would like to thank all the CNCF past mentees for coming up with this program. I think this is a really great initiative taken by all of you. Uh, so yeah. So first of all, in this presentation, I will start off with giving a short introduction about me, my inspiration for applying for CNCF. Why specifically I wanted to apply for CNCF community. Then I will be talking about my internship that I did with a Thanos project. Then my learnings, and then I will be sharing a few tips on how to contribute. This is not specifically to CNCF community. This is in general for on how to get started contributing to different open source projects. And at the last, benefits for the same. Yeah, to talk about me, I'm a final year computer science student based out of India. To talk about my motivation for being in computer science domain is that I wanted to find out how different software actually work on. Like I was really fascinated how different gaming technologies or different softwares are actually running, and so that was it about it. And I feel really very happy when I'm if I've worked on something and people are using it. It it just cheers you up. You feel very you are actually doing something great. So I and that's how like I started contributing to open source from from my first year of my college. And I'm a con- yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm a contributor to Wiki Education Dashboard, which is actually a tool that is used to that is used by various students and educators to improve Wikipedia. Apart from that, I'm also a contributor to Thanos, which is actually an incubated CNCF incubated project, which offers long time storage for Prometheus, and about which I will be talking during presentation. Uh, I also frequently write about my learnings and internships on Medium. I've attached a link, and anyone can read my blogs. And last, I've also once mentored Wiki. I've also been an outreach mentor for Wikimedia. Yeah. uh, like before I talk about like my inspiration for applying for CNCF community, I would like to share my story of how came to know about the CNCF community itself. Well, I came to know about CNCF community through my brother. My brother is also a software engineer, and he had this Prometheus sticker on the back of his laptop. And I asked him about this Prometheus sticker, and he told me, he introduced me to Prometheus, and told me that Prometheus is actually an important monitoring tool for cloud native applications. So I really found that very interesting, and I began searching for different CNCF projects, mainly focusing on Prometheus. So like usually the biggest step that you need to take in order to get started is the first step itself. So first of all, uh, how I started was that I started to uh, watch the CNCF GitHub repository in which it lists all its current projects. And from there, I came to know about the community wish program, which is now known as LFX mentorship program. And I decided to apply for Thanos. And to be honest, I really didn't know anything about Thanos when I applied for the same. And uh, the application process is actually really really very simple. The best part about this internship, like the about this program, is that you do not really have to know everything about like you do not have to be like much familiar with the technology. Even if you are not familiar, or you do not know something, it's still okay. This internships are mainly focused on you learning and getting you into the community. So like definitely I when I wanted to apply for CNCF, my main concern was that am I good enough to apply for CNCF projects? Because yeah, definitely they are very it's very difficult, the level of code and uh, the work quality that is required. So yeah, I would just like, those were the questions that I used to think about even after I got selected, that how specifically how I would start. So yeah, to talk about my internship, my project was to work on my project was to ensure the read and write coordination between different Thanos components. So, like I said, I was really very scared, and I was not familiar with any of the technologies that the Thanos was using. Like, I was not familiar with Golang, or I was not familiar with distributed system, or any of the object storages. I didn't know about the different consistencies that are actually associated. So first of all, how I started working on was that first of all I started learning Golang, I went to different Purel site tutorials and learn Golang, even the official Golang tutorial site. And after that, what I did was that after setting up the Thanos in my laptop, uh, uh, I started to understand the different components or the Thanos as itself. With that, I went to different PromptCon videos of Bartek and Fabian, and also like went to different. I also started learning about Prometheus because Prometheus, like Thanos, is much like the implementation in the code base is much like the Prometheus itself. So I started learning about that. I started documenting it so that I can refer to it later on, and to make it easier to have my for my first contribution, my mentors Bartek and KGS assigned me a very beginner level issue, so that it would give me a lot of confidence and give me a hang of the code base. Yeah, so to talk about the things that I learned during my internship is that there are few things that you have to follow when you are contributing to an open source or working on a project. Some things are like, first of all, is to make sure that you are communicating or you're asking your doubts on public channel. This is that because there would be other people who would have the same doubt as you, and and another thing, it would ensure that you are not completely reliable on your mentors. And like for me, when I used to post my doubts on on this public channels, there would be so many helping community members who would actively participate, and no matter how many doubts I actually used to post, everyone now and then used to reply to me and help me with everything. And another thing that you should take care of is that please ensure that your messages are actually friendly, and they do not sound authoritative. Like sometimes you do not intend them to be authoritative, but it happens that you post this message like it sounds like as an authoritative. So like I posted two screenshots over here. The first one seems like an as an like an order that I'm ordering someone to view my blog, whereas in uh, the other message seems like a request that please, I have made this blog post. I would request you to please go and take a look and give me a quick feedback. Uh, the another process that we followed was a weekly sync up session. This was actually the this weekly sync up session was to ensure that we would talk about any doubts that I would have. That was a document which was shared among three of us, in which we would add the agenda before time, that what we want to talk about. If there is actually no agenda, there was no point of meeting. So we would used to add all the doubts or anything that is remaining, and write all the solution that like all the discussion that we discussed about. And like we initially decided to have this weekly sync up sessions during on Thursdays, but yeah, we sometimes used to even have on Sunday. And thank you very much for my mentors to be very flexible with that. Yeah, and the thing is that the another thing is that everyone makes a mistake. Even I made a mistake during my project. I was at the end of my project, I had my exams coming up, and I kind of panicked, so that I had to like finish it before the end of the internship. And I didn't divide the project into the smaller tasks, and the end result was a big pull request with 300 plus conversations, and it was really really very hard to communicate, or like to comment, or like to find out what actually the conversation is going on. To make it easier, I used to comment I used to make a comment which would include the different links that are like links to the comments that are still in discussion and want inputs of other people, but still it was really very hard to communicate because and also to review because it was such a big PR. People like my waiters had to spend extra time on reviewing the pull request. So yeah, this is something that everyone should take care of. Now, to talk about how to start contributing to open source, I have actually contributed to three different open source projects, and this is something like meetups that I follow. So, this is something that I follow. The first thing is that whenever you pick up a project that you are interested in, they usually have a well defined detailed guidelines on how you can set it up, the different technologies that they use, and the coding style, like all the details are actually given into it. And like after you are done setting up and getting all the details of this, what you can do is first of all learn the different technologies that they are using, different languages. And after like after you have learned the different languages or the technologies that they are using, uh, how you can start contributing is that you can start with the beginner level issues. Those are actually usually marked as a good first issues or a beginner or a first timers only. You can easily categorize them using the GitHub's label option, and you can ask another thing is that do not start working on a specific issue until and unless it is free, like someone is actually not working on this. And the other thing is that please ask all your doubts. Do not start working until and unless you have a clear image of the issue, that what specifically thing is actually asked inside this issue. uh, to find out different beginner level issues, you can use this up for grabs website. I've personally never used this website. I came to know about this website a few days few days ago. And this website is actually designed for beginners, for newbies in open source, to find different beginner level issues in which you can find different this beginner level issues sorted by different projects, and you can just search it out. It does not have it yet does not have all the projects included into it. But yeah, like many projects are actually given in this are accessible through this up for grabs. Another small thing that you can follow is you can start by making small contributions. The small contribution are like you can just modify the readme file, then or add or modify a simple functionality which does not actually require you to know much about the technology. This is like the basic tasks that you can do. So these are some things that you can follow. um, Talking about the benefits, in this, I will specifically be talking about what benefits I faced after I completed my internship with Thanos. First of all, talking about the general thing is that you get to work on. You get to you get to know about different technologies, you get to meet different people, and you develop different skill sets. Talking about my Thanos internship, um, it didn't only help me improve my technological skill sets, but it also helped me improve my communication skills or vocabulary skills. So yeah, this is something really very useful. And as I said, you get to work on products which are actually used by thousands of developers around the world. And the another thing that the things the opportunity that I the opportunities that I'm getting right now after my Thanos internship is that many companies have been actually approaching me on LinkedIn to interview with them. Uh, it is because of my contributions to CNCF community. Uh, Another thing is that you get to get a chance to attend different CNCF conferences such as PromCon, KubeCon. Like it's not really necessary, but you get a chance of getting the like all the sponsored trip to different CNCF conferences. And these conferences are really very nice. You get to meet so many people. And this specifically like KubeCon are you get to meet a lot of recruiters over there. So yeah, this is also really very nice opportunity to do things. And another the last point I would like to point out is that become the part of the community, pass on the flag, how others help you get into the open source. You also share your own experience, help them get into open source. And yeah, become part of the community. So yeah, that's it. And thank you. If you have any questions, so you can ask me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Khyati. I mean, your session was really insightful, and um, I actually relate with the point where you said about when you are before you started contributing to Thanos, you felt this incompetence. You were like scared of I don't really know this language, or I don't even know this technology. um, I definitely relate to that story, and I would want to encourage the attendees in this call to, please feel free to, reach out for these opportunities, apply for these opportunities. Don't, in as much as you feel scared, see it as a normal thing, see it as something that happens to everyone, but then move past that fear to probably, learn new technologies and, go for these opportunities. So, a huge thanks to Khyati for this awesome presentation. And yes, so for the Q&A, please feel free to, share your questions on the chat or the Q&A section. You could also use the raise your hand button in Zoom, and we'll definitely answer your questions. And if you are not comfortable posting your questions on Zoom, please feel free to share your questions on the CNCF Mentees Meetup Slack channel. So yeah, I guess we'd have to check the chats and see if we have any questions yet.
I think we have one question, but it was answered offline, but we can repeat and answer to everyone as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Um,
So the question is, could you explain a timeline for 2021? I guess about mentorship. And the answer was that the exact date are not yet decided, and that's true. However, we can expect something very similar what was here this year. So essentially, we can see that it was one in the first quarter. Essentially, there were free sessions, free sections of the year, free mentorship programs. And I would expect CNCF hopefully to organize things in similar pattern. So definitely watch out on the blog, and also motivate projects to do such mentorship, because I think not every project participate that much as Thanos, and it's really about showing the value of it by doing some kind of meetups like this, but also as a contributors asking for help, and showing, even if contributor is showing, hey, maybe you can create this program for this task, I will be super happy to participate. And I think this will motivate maintainers even more to spend time on this. But that's maybe some guess here. Cool. Any other?
yeah, so we have a question on the chat spot. It seems like he's been answered. So basically, Amit was asking, how can he, uh, how can he learn Golang, any form of Golang resources you could share. And Amit, you can check out Khyati's blog. She has a really good blog where she really outlined the necessary resources you could follow, in order to learn Golang. As well, you could also check out the Golang official documentation website. So it has a really, really good tutorial on the site as well. So um, that's that.
I think it's also, the question is rather, I mean, definitely how to learn Golang, but also, can someone contribute without this knowledge? Or can someone apply for this mentorship as well, I guess?
Exactly.
People can definitely apply for the projects. Like even I wasn't familiar with Golang when I applied for Thanos, and I learned it during my internship. So I would say that it's okay if you are not familiar with the language. Like the LFX mentorship program does not really require you to do that, whereas in like GSOC outreachy programs require you to have few contributions into the project. But yeah, this program does not really require you to do that. So you can learn alongside your internship. But yeah, it is actually not really like necessary for you to know this different technologies before you apply.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, any other questions? Just
I have a
okay.
question.
Okay. Okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, like, I tried looking at Kubernetes issues, and like most of them are already taken. Like, there were no issues. Like the good first, forget about the good first issues. Like there were no issues which were ready to be taken, and the ones uh, which were not accepted or taken up, they were not accepted by the triage. So, like, how do we? So I think, am I right to assume that having a functional experience of the project and then creating your own issues to take them up, is that the right way, or how do we
Um,
try to take this up?
Well, like I said that even I made up for this Google Coding for Wikipedia. So we specifically make this kind of we used to make this specific kind of issues, so that they are dedicated this like dedicated to the students who are actually applying for this different programs. Even during outreach before the starting of the when we listed out the projects. I started making different beginner level issues so that they would actually have different issues to work on. So yeah, this was kind of a thing that I like we used to follow in Wikimedia when I was a mentor. But yeah, like definitely it actually depends on the projects also. For some projects, there are actively like the contributors are actively contributing. There are so many contributors. So yeah, sometimes it's really hard to get different issues to work on. But yeah, if you want to
Yeah,
really get started on, I think you can actually just start up by picking up some beginner level issue, or you can actually post it on Slack and ask someone to refer you different issues to work on. Like ask someone that I want to contribute to this community, and I can you please help me get started with this particular can you please point out to me some beginner level issues that I can get working on, because I cannot find any. So yeah, that is also something that you can try.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think Manish want to talk, so I'm
Okay.
allowing you to talk. Manish, please feel free to ask question if you want. We cannot hear you. Some mic problems, or maybe I misclicked something. We can try to make him panelist as well. Anyway, in meantime, any other questions?
So I have one. So this is kind of like out of context of the CNCF, but is there any link to resources you could share as regards where, first timers or newbies could actually have access to open source internships? Is there any link you could actually share for probably a newbie to check out opportunities within, internship opportunities within open source?
Yeah, I can actually do that. I do have a uh, link about, but it's like specifically dedicated to different the female programs, which only allows the female program because I followed that. So I will have to look into it, but I did had this GitHub link in which it like used to post about different programs that are dedicated to girls, even different scholarships or yeah, different scholarships to apply for. I will definitely share that on Slack. But yeah, I'm not really not really like familiarized with the general like many programs that are like for general. But yeah, I'm familiar with the different many girl programs that are available. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. I think we have one link already on the chat section, so I could as well check out that link as well. So thank you so much for that. So if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to use the chat. Feel free to ask on our Slack channel. We are more than ready to answer your questions. Manish, you can also, or you could probably maybe type out your question if you weren't able to, you know, use the mic. You can
I
use
think it
the,
was some error. We can move on.
okay, all right, awesome. So I guess we have no other question. Okay, so thank you so much, Khyati, for your awesome presentation. We are really grateful for you sharing your experience into open source and into the Thanos ecosystem. So next agenda is definitely break. So we'll be going on a 10 minutes break. Hopefully, to chill off. If you can get some snacks, get some snacks. You know, yeah. So definitely, we'll be leaving, and in 10 minutes time, we would assemble as well. If you don't want to go on breaks, please feel free to also use the chat section as well. Um, you know, communicate on the chat section. Also, feel free to use the our official Slack channel, which is the CNCF Mentees Meetup, to probably get to know each other. And with that, I see you in 10 minutes.
Hi, hi everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Sonia, we are able to hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so we have just launched a poll about your familiarity with CNCF and open source. Please feel free to enter.
All right. Welcome back to this amazing event. Um, yes, I know some people might not be back, which is normal. But I guess we continue with our agenda. So over to the next and final speaker is Vineeth Pothulapati. So Vineeth will be talking to us about roadmap to becoming a CNCF mentee. Of course, Vineeth is a past mentee at Codex and Open Policy Agent. So I'm really excited to actually learn from Vineeth and also get to understand how the roadmap to becoming a CNCF mentee, how it looks like. So without further ado, please join me to welcome Vineeth.
Hello everyone. You are able to hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know if you are able to see my screen.
We can see
Yes, you can.
Okay. So hello everyone. So today I will be talking about roadmap to becoming a CNCF mentee. So I've done a couple of internships with CNCF. So I will just share my experiences in doing one. So. Okay. So about me, so I'm an engineer at Timescale. So I just joined recently, like a couple of weeks back, and I have interned with CNCF projects like Cortex and Open Policy Agent. So I have done Community Bridge twice. So I'm the lucky one to do it twice under CNCF. But now the norms have changed, so anyone can do it only once. So yeah, and coming to the like my GSOC, so I like I'm a recent college graduate, so I have been graduated in 2019, like in a year back. So I during my last year, I have done a Google Summer of Code with the Postgres operator. So it's a Zalando's Postgres operator. So I have done there, and it's been exactly 1 year, 6 months. I have co-founded and organizer for CNCF Hyderabad community. So if you are in Hyderabad or India, feel free to join our meetup group. So we also have a Twitter handle, and we do monthly meetups on introducing new technologies around CNCF and how people are using it at scale, and deep dive into many other projects. So recently we have done an observability meetup. So, and other than that, my free time, I read books and I do cycling a lot. So yeah, you can reach out to me in Twitter for any questions or for any kind of guidance. And you can see all my work and blogs in my personal website, vineethweb.com. So let's get into the topic. So today's agenda. So today I'll be talking about what is it to be a CNCF mentee. So there are many mentorship programs. Why you should consider CNCF mentorship program as your top priority. And the second one is what are the different mentorship programs under CNCF, and how to become one, and how to do it right after becoming one. So everyone has their own way of doing it right. So I just every time I have done with my internship program, I do a retrospection and I just write down what could I have done better. So all my experiences together will be exposed here, and the things to do post mentorship program. So for everyone, post mentorship work may not work out, but I would just share what kind of work would definitely add value to the project as well as you as an individual. Yes. So what is CNCF? So every time, like during my last year of college, I used to advocate CNCF locally. So I used to ask everyone that did you see Kubernetes? Did you learn Docker? Did you see containers and all this? So the very first question I keep getting that is that what is CNCF? So this is the latest definition I have noticed in Twitter, and it accurately fits to what CNCF is today. So CNCF is a collection of technologies and practices that automate the deployment and management of highly decoupled and resilient application workloads across elastic infrastructures using a uniform abstraction of computing resources. So yeah, like it was very hard for me to memorize, so I just put it here so that I can read. So this each and every word makes the CNCF, because you can see all words from distributed systems concepts like automation, deployments, resilient, elastic infrastructures, and all this. So CNCF is a house for all that core technologies. And what is it to be a CNCF mentee? Yeah, CNCF is a very welcoming and vibrant community. So I have joined CNCF like 2 years back. So when I joined, like joining in the sense, I just joined the CNCF Slack. I was looking at the projects. I have been looking at the PRs in the CNCF GitHub repository. I was trying to understand. Like back then, like we didn't have all these mentorship programs. I think. That year, GSOC was for second time in 2019, like when I looked into CNCF. So, like when I joined CNCF, I've met very passionate individuals and I've been friends with them even till today. It's been 2 years. So everyone, like when I was in college, I didn't know about all these technologies. So I only knew that these were the cutting edge technologies and these are the futuristic technologies which everyone eventually would adopt to. And that's how the CNCF and all this have attracted me and pulled me to this community. And majority of the users use the CNCF technologies in very high scale. So when I landed my first internship, like it was another it's a company from Hyderabad, India. So it has nothing to do with CNCF. So they didn't even know what CNCF was. But their business goals were much more inclined with containerizing their applications in early 2019 and to monitor their applications and everything. But every time I see the adoption is always at a very large scale. So when you talk about CNCF technologies, majority of enterprises operate them at in scale. So there is so it's just not only a technology which serves your need, but it also runs at a very high scale. And mentors with immense experience in writing high quality code and operational knowledge. So I have met many people in person from many CNCF events. I have been to many conferences. So I have met many people, and every time I just initiate a discussion saying that how this is being done. So they explain me each and everything. So recently, early 2019 in January, I have done my community bridge with Cortex. So I didn't know anything about Cortex, but I had a previous discussion about what Cortex was in KubeCon San Diego. So where I got an opportunity to meet Tom Wilkie. So in the Grafana's booth, I just asked, what is this Cortex and everything. So I just asked this question and we had a 10 to 15 minutes discussion followed by explaining what is the architecture and how exactly it's being done and everything. So that made me like target for Cortex. So I wanted to do an internship, especially with Cortex was my first priority. And that's how I did my first internship with Cortex. And like I have seen the first talk of Cortex. So I think as Bartek is also in the call, I would like to give a shout out to that. So the first talk I have seen on Cortex was two households, both with alike dignity. So that was the talk which gave me an introduction to what Cortex was and what Thanos was and differences between both. And like I would highly recommend if people are working on any monitoring solutions or long-term solutions, it definitely gives you cons and pros over using different ways. But right now they both are becoming more similar with block storage and Cortex. So yeah. Apart from that, what are the CNCF mentorship programs? So right now, currently in CNCF, as per my knowledge, we have 4 mentorship programs. One is Google Summer of Code, Google Season of Docs, LFX mentorship, Linux Foundation mentorship, which was formerly the community-based program where I interned and every one of us interned. And the 4th one is Outreachy. So the timelines for GSOC and Google Summer of Code and Outreach are specifically maintained by those organizations, and CNCF just takes part in it. But whereas Community Bridge happens every cycle, so it has been it's been a year or more, so it's been 3 or 4 cycles. We are doing continuously. So yeah, you have more likely chances to get into Community Bridge as it happens multiple times a year. So how to become one? So this is completely me. So when I used to think about how to become one, so I used to see so many projects. Like I still remember I reached out to even Bartek to do a CNCF project second time in Thanos because I had knowledge with Cortex. I wanted to do it in Thanos. But like I was in my work, I was working open policy agent, and I just got opportunities there. But I used to think like we have so many projects, and one project has C knowledge, like it asks C basic skills, and one asks for Go, and other asks for Rust, and like we have too many projects. Like how should you pick one? And these are too many thoughts when you are seriously planning to get into the mentorship program. So getting started. So I would suggest that to get notified about the mentorship programs, be active in the CNCF Slack mentoring channel, which you can see all the pull requests being created and everything towards the Git repository of mentoring. Whenever a new timeline or anything gets updated, you see a new ping there. Also, you can add a watch to the CNCF mentoring repository to know anything about the programs. And one thing I forgot to mention is that though you are a working professional, or you need not be a student to be in the mentorship of CNCF. So Community Bridge highly encourages that you can be even a working individual who wants to contribute to an open source project with a CNCF maintainers mentoring you. So it's totally fine. So please have a look at Community Bridge program, and you can definitely be one. So it only needs like a commitment. Like it differs from project to project. You can have a commitment of 15 to 20 hours a week, which is your weekends would be sufficient if the project is small. But it goes case by cases, project from project to project. So yeah, you have a Community Bridge to always look for, and pick the project you love. So I see many people in the community see the projects and they just go and apply them. So you don't need to do that. So to get a mentorship thing, you don't need to go and apply for a specific project which has slots. If you love it, if it is matching your interest, definitely do that. You're lucky because the one you wanted to do is already in the mentorship program. But also try to work with the projects which you love directly. Like there should not be any mentorship program for you to get into that project, so you can directly get in. And having a prior knowledge on the project or tech stack will add value, because there are different projects. So few project maintainers have the time, and they definitely love to help you with right from the beginning of learning technologies. But whereas in other projects where I was mentored, so we had multiple folks writing, creating good first issues, and adding code, like refactoring the code wherever needed. So it will just give you more value over others if you are already have the knowledge, prior knowledge. But it's totally fine. That would not be the deciding factor of you being in a mentorship program, but it adds weight. So in getting started, play with the project, understand how the project works. Just try to do how locally it works. How does developers test the project? That way you will understand what the project is. So definitely as a mentee, you cannot have the operational knowledge of the product at scale, but try to get the operational knowledge in your local PC, how the project works. And picking the project. So choose one of the project from the mentorship projects. In the CNCF mentoring repo, you see these are maintainers of the projects coming in and putting the projects. This is one way of picking the project. But as Bartek told, we have like Thanos is taking a very huge efforts in getting into the community and mentoring many folks under Thanos. But there are many projects which are not in this in the mentorship programs yet. So the maintainers may not be having the time, or they not know about how this works. But you can take the initiation to go to the maintainer and say that this is the project I love to work with, and this is the feature I'm planning to contribute to. Can we have it under the CNCF mentorship program? So that would definitely work. So I remember my open policy agent project was done that way. So you can also push your project or the work you wanted to do into the CNCF mentorship project. So yeah, you are totally okay to do that. So you need to talk to Ihor, the developer advocate from CNCF, and your maintainer. You three need to have a communication so that the project gets into the CNCF mentorship. So there are two ways, and if you pick the second way of initiating, like creating the project idea, writing the design docs, and taking it to the mentorship program, you would have the like more likely chances of getting into the mentorship program, because it's your idea to get that project into the mentorship. And becoming one. So becoming one always starts, and every one of us here has done this. So introduce yourself in Slack, express your interest, like you wanted to work with so and so area on the feature, and what are you're thinking about it, and write a design doc. So I have done in all my projects, right from GSOC to Community Bridge and other areas. So I always write a design doc what I think, because it's not just that we are writing the feature, because even the project and the maintainers, if we see it in the other way around, the maintainers are committing the time, and they are also putting their time on the project, on the feature, and in mentoring you. So if you write a design doc and implementation details right before starting the project itself, you will have a clear idea what needs to be done in the project and what are the skills you need to learn while implementing the project. So writing a design doc will increase the chances of you getting into the mentorship program. And the second thing, you'll be aware of end to end what needs to be done, and all the stakeholders in the project, like the core contributors, maintainers, everyone can share their thoughts around the implementation details. So write a design doc, share it in the community, and take the feedbacks and try to answer the questions, and just take the project forward with implementation details. The discussion in the community call as well. So as the timeline will be definitely long, so you can get into the community calls of the project and just put it in the agenda. I want to work with this, and this is the design doc. So do you have any feedback for it? What are the plans for the next going forward with the project? So keep contributing to the project with good first issues and other areas. So there will be definitely areas like documentation or releases and everything. So open source projects loves to have people who contribute. So you will always find a place for yourself if you want to stick to the project. Doing it right after becoming one. So you have been seeing all this gifs. So I have recently seen this Queen's Gambit web series, and I totally loved it. So that's the reflection here. So I just wanted to show that how just to promote or advocate the web series. So it's definitely worth watching. So yeah, doing it right. When we get into the project, primarily target on the basic working model. So if you are doing a CLI, just try to have the CLI, like build the use the Cobra SPF 13 framework, and just have the boilerplate and the skeleton ready. We can add the blood and muscles together, but the main focus should be you should have the bones ready, so that even if the project in the worst case that it didn't complete in time, people can add their the work around the skeleton and get the project feature rich. But always target the basic working model, because you'll get to know. So in companies right now, it's they are told as technical spikes or POC. So do a working model of the feature so that you have a technical spike or the POC ready already, which is working, and you can keep altering it in making it more robust, efficient, and following the styling guides of the project and writing documentation and blog posts. So doing right always involves doing the full suite of your project. So first, write the basic working model. Second, add all the styling guides and everything. Third, write all the E2E test cases, because every open source project, usually in our enterprises, we have dedicated people to test it, but in open source project, usually the testing is done by the test suite. So though you leave the community or leave the project after you develop it, your test cases will definitely help your feature to be stable. Whenever something breaks, your test suite will definitely raise the flag that something has broke here. So pay much attention towards E2E tests. I learned it a bit late during my contributions, but E2E tests also adds the real value. And iterate over review comments. So usually people, the maintainers spend time, and so even if you update it, you try to iterate it fast so that the maintainers can share the constructive feedback again and again. Have some patience, because open source project is not just about you and your maintainer using it. It will go to hundreds to thousands of people using it. So it definitely needs iterations over it to become better. Also write docs and blogs on your work so that you will help other people to get into the community and join the community, and even you can advocate the project you're working for. and even the users and the adoption of the project increases by seeing the active community. If it didn't happen, so there is always the other side of the coin. So what if the mentorship didn't happen, like you didn't get into the mentorship program, what needs to be done? So like I have done my GSOC in my engineering 4th year, but I have applied in engineering 2nd year, engineering 3rd year, and then I got into it in engineering 4th year. So I would say that it's not just about skills. There will be multiple factors which decides your position or you getting into the program. So it's totally fine. Like it's totally fine. I'm saying it's absolutely fine. I'll say that because there are many maintainers and many folks in the community who have not done any mentorship programs before. But if you get a chance, try to do it. But it's not a must and must have a thing in your profile. So it's totally fine. But by the time if someone gets rejected in the mentorship program, you have immense knowledge on the implementation details of design doc. You have worked on running the project. You have seen the docs. You have seen, you have learned everything about ins and outs of the project. So try to stick to the project. Like I'm not saying that apply again next time for the same project. I would not recommend that because your knowledge, the way you increase your knowledge should always be in terms of you should get into new projects, you should get into new areas and learn new things. So that's my recommendation. So just do what works for you. So just stick to the project, help beginners in the Slack channel, answer the questions, learn from the project, advocate the project. It definitely helps. So it doesn't mean that you get rejected for the project, you just move away from the project, but try to stick to the project and keep applying for the next mentorship cycle. So as you have got the experience of how the mentorship program works, you have more likely chances to get into the next cycle. So keep applying and keep doing your contributions to the projects because it has its own value addition. Post mentorship, so you have successfully done your mentorship program, your PR has been merged, you have built an awesome rapport with your maintainers, you have awesome rapport with the community and the core contributors. You don't want to leave something which you have built so easily. You should not be like, okay, I just got some stipend, I just got some certificate from Community Bridge, I'll move away. No, you have built something way important than just a mentorship program. You have built networking with the community, what the Thanos community is doing it right now. So it's the most valuable thing you can build is the networking and the rapport with the people. So you will never get another chance to do that again. So stick to the community, influence the project, make the project to go to a better places, direct the project, like just keep learning. So you will like as long as you want, you can add the value to the project will always need you. So keep reviewing the PRs, do bug triaging, attend the community calls, do some take ownership on releases of the project. So you can do that. So as the more experience you get on the project, you can do that. So yeah, you can make sure that you are available for the project in different means, however it works for you based on your time commitment. And one last thing I would like to say is that keep working on what you love, and the cloud native community is definitely a great place to be in. So it has definitely helped me in my career and as an individual who I am today as well. So I've been doing some CNCF programs. I've been to as a speaker to multiple conferences, and I've done some mentorship programs, and I'm working on CNCF technologies. So this has been possible by being a part of CNCF community. So definitely try to be part of CNCF community, and thank you. And all this talk of mine is already, I just did a write-up on this talk, and it's available here in this link. So yeah, I'll just open this link. Okay. Is it not open? Just give me a second. So I just added it here. So you can read about the project, or if you want to share it with anyone. So I just added more details here. How does the, so it has more details obviously. So I wanted to complete in 20 minutes, so I didn't add more. But I would like to add a small point on, okay, I'm still sharing the screen. I think I can stop sharing my screen. Okay, let it be. So yeah, So I've noticed one question that how do I contribute to Kubernetes, that many other issues are already taken. I have seen the same issue 2 years back when I was starting to contributing to Kubernetes. So I would suggest that don't be in mindset that you should contribute to only to Kubernetes but not other projects. If you see the CNCF landscape here, we have too many, like we have 70 plus projects under CNCF, and there are many projects under Sandbox. So sandbox projects are something they are still ideating, they are still innovating how should the project go forward. So if your work and your efforts would definitely make the project go much further. And sandbox projects and incubating projects definitely need core contributors and people who can spend time there. So I would say sandbox projects and incubating projects are definitely a projects to spend more priority and work for. And yeah, like you can definitely be the contributor there. Yeah, that's it from my end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vineeth. I mean, your session was really insightful. I really learned a lot from your session. So if anyone, if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat. Raise your hands on the chat as well. You are free to type on the chat as well. If you are not conversant with Zoom, you can as well share your questions on Slack, on our official Slack channel. That's the hashtag CNCF Mentees Meetup. But overall, great presentation. Um, so yeah, please don't be shy. We all are here to learn. If you have any question at all relating to open source contributions, community bridge, CNCF, please feel free to use the chat. And if you're on the Slack channel, please also feel free to post your questions there. Yeah, we are taking a look on the chat to see if we could see any questions.
Like I have a small addition. Like Vineeth's talk was really comprehensive. Like it covered a lot of aspects of the mentoring program. So kudos for that.
Thank you, Ish. So, like adding to that, so I have seen, whatever I have written here, as more or less have been followed by other mentors. So, I've seen Ish's design doc for Thanos project. So, which we all followed the same pattern. So, which definitely adds value if you are trying to get into the mentorship program.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, I think we have one on the chats. Okay, so Vineeth, what's your advice on understanding projects that appear very complex? As it is, it's difficult to contribute to a project that one doesn't understand.
Yes, so yeah, I'll definitely share my experience here. So usually I totally agree, even Kubernetes or Cortex or any other projects to run locally would be a challenge or to understand as well. But I would suggest that there is a lot of resources in YouTube. So you see the intro talks on Thanos, Cortex. So every Kubicon will have the maintainer sessions, which will give a talk on the latest iterations on the project. And the second thing is that there are deep dive talks. So these deep dive talks are mostly centric to how to use the project, how to scale the project, how to scale a specific component of it. So the deep dive talks and all these talks together on the project should definitely help you. This would be the first thing you can do to understand the complex architectures. And the second thing I would suggest is that there would be definitely some write-ups by previous contributors. Like if we see in Prometheus, the complete block storage has been written by Fabian on his website, and there is a talk like storing 8 bytes at scale. So you have all the stocks to understand the internal implementation. So most of the projects will definitely have it. So just reach out in the Slack channel and ask them. So I'm trying to run it locally. Do you have any scripts, or do you have any architectural description talks? So like everything definitely has the resources are definitely been exposed already. So when I was starting Cortex locally, so I had issues. So I didn't know how to run Cortex. So it had 4 to 5 microservices running. So I didn't know there was a single binary option available. So that's how I started. So reach out in the Slack channel, ask them, are there any configuration files, or how do they suggest you to run it locally. And every project should definitely have a file called contributing.md, which will have the basic getting started guides, like how do you build the project, how you test the project, and how to debug the project. Some resources in that line, so they should help you.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other question?
Yeah, I have one question. So, super amazing talk. I think you covered lots of stuff um, that are, helping maintainers as well to again be motivated and see a huge value in mentoring, right? But my question is to you: what do you wish, the maintainers did better when you joined? Like, what do you wish the project did better? Or maybe CNCF did better in terms of, that would make you easier, better, um, the experience that you had.
So yeah, I would. This is definitely a great question. So when I joined the community, I was very a bit. I was just feeling that I'm an outsider to the project. All like it was there in me, but my mentor in the first project of Cortex was Gautam Veeramachineni. He is the maintainer of Cortex. So he went into the Google groups and he started a new chain saying that here is Vineeth. He will be working on storage plugins of Cortex, and he'll be working with us for next 2 months. So he introduced me to the complete the stakeholders of the project, which made my following days easier. So we just need. I feel that every mentee needs a small path to getting into the project. It's just a pipeline. So a slight introduction and an introduction in the first community call had made my contributions much easier. Yeah.
Cool, makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Amazing presentation once again. If you have any other questions, please feel free to post on the Slack channel. Because from the look of things, I think we are running a bit out of time. So
I have a small addition.
okay.
The resources that you have used, can you share it in the Slack channel? That would be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm just sharing it later.
Cool. So if you have any other questions, please use the Slack channel. We'll definitely answer any questions that you have. So I guess it's time to move to the final agenda.
Also, if you have 30 seconds, I just have a question for Bartek. So yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Please feel free.
So hi Bartek. So I've been seeing all your work since like more than a year in Thanos and recently in the SIG observability and in gRPC middleware. So how do you manage doing work in different projects and being the maintainer? And I can completely see that you have grouped all the mentees of Thanos together and you started this. Like I think definitely there is a push from your end to start the CNCF mentees group. So I definitely see all some amazing initiatives from your end and all the work towards the CNCF community. So could you just share how do you manage and how do you make sure that you get into all these places where people get benefited out of these things?
Cool. Okay. That's a great question. I think, I have mentees, right? So that's the whole story. They do all the work. But they definitely help. But obviously, it's a lot of help to get people started and get people motivated as well. And I think good organizing skills is really important. Like I would recommend reading some books. For example, Getting Things Done. That's a kind of very raw book, like difficult to read, but some of the tips are really useful. Like I'm noting everything. I'm trying to get out of my head as soon as possible whenever I have something to do to some external memory like my computer, like, and I'm using Google Keep for notes and stuff like that. So all of this, try to have a clear and structure so you are not lost, right? And I think my mentees also seen some kind of organization uh, during our mentorship. So we were, having all the meetings have some agenda, some meeting notes, and when you have so many mentorship, I could easily just look on our previous meetings where there were any action items whatsoever, and then I was already have a context um, and have context how to proceed with the meeting and how to help and what are the current topics. And this actually relates to your work as well, to your life, and actually everything. So I would really recommend that. But essentially, good organization skills and meeting a right people, I think is the solution, right? Because obviously you can. Um, there were people that maybe mentoring didn't um, kind of went well. There are some failures on the way. um, not everyone is the same. There are different cases, but usually um, I always try to choose spending time with people that are valuable, that want to learn, that are maybe modest. I want to learn as well. So um, kind of the people with similar kind of a positive approach. So no, I think those things. But yeah, it's not easy. um, but hopefully I can pass some passion to someone else. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This answers my question, Bartek. So there are two things I like to add. So like 6 months back or 8 months back, when I first in my previous company, we were using OpenShift cluster. When we had OpenShift cluster running, by seeing the Thanos scale it was running, I was totally amazed. So kudos to all your work. So on the OpenShift clusters, I've seen that. And the second thing is that you're also an inspiration for me in cycling. So I keep following you in Strava. So yeah.
Okay, I think yeah, that part I'm super painful part because it's lots of pain to do those long cycling roads. But yeah, I don't know if you do, but recently there's a popular stationary cycling, and you have lots of programs. There's like a multiplayer game when everyone's cycling, but like literally you need to do some work to have some race, I mean win some race or whatever. So if you do that, we can join for some virtual ride as well.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Bartik. Thank you for sharing all your experiences. Yeah.
No, thank you for doing this amazing talk as well, and everyone else as well. And thank you, mentees, for organizing everything. I was really literally just sending on the site and just answering maybe some questions because I was organizing some meetups in my life. But no, like it was mostly your work. So yeah, shout out to everyone.
Awesome.
Great. So let me like start the wrap up of this event. Like, thank you so much, all the attendees and the speakers, for taking out their time to attend this event. I know that the time might be a bit different for different people. So really, thank you so much for keeping this in mind. Apart from that, thank you the speakers for the sharing the content and making sure that the content is like manageable for the time that we planned. I know that the online talks can be a little bit of tricky kind of stuff. Especially, I thought that the online demo that Harsh did, I was a bit scared that it might take a little bit more time, but still he finished out really well. So it was really great. Next slides, please. Okay, so apart from that, if you are like quite interested in like joining us, more like volunteering for any sort of help, we are quite welcoming for that. So you can join us to volunteer for like next meetups that we plan. So like Bartek can add more upon the like duration of meetups that we are thinking of keeping. Apart from that, as we have shared the link for the CNCF Slack, it's more like slack.cncf.io. And in that, we have the CNCF Mentees Meetup channel where you can join us and like you can post different questions regarding the mentorship program or in general any kind of a mentoring that you want. So feel free to like post your questions and any sort of thing that you have. Apart from that, since this is the first event that we are holding, so like shortcomings are always going to be there. So we will be sharing a feedback form later, so feel free to share your feedback, what went right or what went wrong, and apart from that, what are the things that you want us to continue. So that would be the thing that we will make sure that the quality of the events stay the same. And apart from that, for contacting us, like you can contact us at the Google Groups. So the link is given there. And feel free to like approach any one of us. You can like DM us if you have any specific questions related to any kind of projects that you're working. So we will be quite happy to address them. So Uche, like you want to like
Yeah,
address the
sure.
end comments.
Exactly. So, thank you so much, guys. To be honest, this was amazing. I don't know for you, but for me, it was really amazing. I mean, seeing all of the speakers giving awesome presentations to the audience, asking questions, was a really interactive one. It was a success, for me. So, thanks once again to each and every one of you, and we look forward to having the second edition of this event, hopefully by next year. So just like Biash said, if you are interested in volunteering, um, we might be sending out a form. But regardless, please feel free to also join the CNCF Mentees Meetup, and also feel free to DM any of us on Slack. Each and every of the organizers are on board the CNCF Mentees Meetup channel on Slack. And with that being said, thank you so much to everyone, and I hope you have a lovely evening. And yeah, see you all on the Slack.